Hey guys, this is Frank Yecker, and you're listening to Submission Radio.
Hey, this is Rich Franklin.
What's up, everybody? This is Chris Lieben.
This is Diego Sanchez, Randy Couture,
Alistair Overeem.
Hi, this is Stephen Bonner.
This is Don Fry.
Hey, I'm Phil, Mr. Wonderful Davis.
TJ Dillashaw.
You're listening to Submission Radio.
Submission Radio.
Submission Radio.
Submission Radio.
You're listening to Submission Radio.
Welcome to Submission Radio, episode 195. It's the 9th of October, Wednesday here in Melbourne, Australia. Fresh cast. Fresh off UFC 243. And I mean, speaking of epic nights and history-breaking nights, what about the experience that we had at Marvel Stadium when we saw Israel Adesanya dethrone the champion, Robert Whittaker, in front of a packed capacity-filled, well, they said it was a capacity-filled new record stadium in Melbourne, Australia. What an unbelievable night that was.
57,127 people allegedly crammed into that arena. We saw a couple of empty seats, man. I'm not going to lie. But hey, that's the record. You did it, Melbourne. You did it, Melbourne. But it wasn't just Melbourne. It was Melbourne. It was New Zealand. It was everybody in Australia who flew down, and to be able to be a part of that and cover the event, talk shop, talk to the fighters, give pre-shows, post-shows, all that kind of stuff. It was a huge honor and a huge privilege to do it. And it's exciting. It's exciting to be back. It's exciting to be back and have some sexy guests for you guys. We've got three. That's right, count them. 3 sexy guests for you. We've got Eugene Bareman of City Kickboxing. The show would not be complete without Eugene, his take on a whole bunch of things. Actually wanted to get Eugene post-fight while Israel was giving his post-fight press conference, hence why I kicked off that press conference. But Eugene wasn't in the back, so we got to ask him, where was he? What was he doing? In fact, we spoke to him last night. It's a pre-recorded interview. He had a last-minute flight change, so he went from morning to a nighttime interview, and dude, it is a crazy interview. He gets very deep on this fight. He gives his analysis. He says that Israel actually went a little bit off script and kind of did his own thing and went away from the game plan. The stuff he says about Jon Jones, you don't want to miss it. Basically saying that if Israel acted like Jon Jones, certain repercussions would be had. He goes very deep, and this is why we love having Eugene on. He is extremely honest, and he doesn't hold back in any way. So it's a really good chat. I actually can't wait for you guys to hear it. Bas Rutten returning to the program. It's been a little while. It's been a minute since Bas Rutten's been on the program. He's here to talk about, obviously, Israel Adesanya's win, Robert Whittaker's loss, the BMF bout, Diaz versus Masvidal that's happening in just a few weeks, which we will be attending and covering as well, and a whole bunch of things as well. Conor McGregor's upcoming fights, this Frankie Edgar apparent fight that Conor might be having. What does Bas think about that, and a whole bunch of more? And then New York Ric, who was here in Melbourne, live and in the flesh, a whole bunch of things to talk to him about. We want to get his experience in his lowdown on what it felt like to be here. I don't think he was here for UFC 193, but you know, it's not every day you get a stadium show, so we've got to get his thoughts on that. A couple of guests that we were supposed to have. Paulo Cost was supposed to be on the show. Ben Askren was supposed to be on the show. Unfortunately, as we've said many times, things happen in the last minute and guests pull out, which is exactly what happened this week. But never fear, they'll be on a future episode. It's still a sexy episode this week.
Yeah, absolutely. It's disappointing when guests pull out, but like you mentioned, they might come on in the future, so stay tuned. Make sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel and follow us on social media to stay tuned to all of the latest guests and interviews that we put out. Sometimes they don't come out in an episode. Sometimes they come out individually, so just keep an eye on the podcast feed and the social media for that. And yeah, definitely excited for the guys today that you mentioned, Cass, and New York Ric. He's got a bit of a interesting prediction when it comes to UFC 245. Me and him behind the scenes have been trying to think of a wager. So let's see what happens when we talk to him at the start of the episode. Maybe we can come up with a little wager. He believes Max Holloway is going to get it done pretty convincingly against Alex Volkanovski in December. And I beg to differ. So we'll see what we can come up with. But before we kick off the episode, Cass, just a quick thank you to all the fans as well that came up to us throughout the fight week at UFC 243. We met a whole bunch of you, at the stadium throughout the fight week. We shook a lot of hands. We were able to have good conversations with a bunch of you and really sort of meet you and get to know you. So it's always a blessing for us to meet you guys. It's always really cool to meet you and talk to you. And we encourage people to message us on social media. Our DMs are open on Twitter. And you are able to message us on Facebook and Instagram as well. Give us your thoughts on the episode and introduce yourselves. We love chatting to all of our friends, fans, and listeners. It was pretty cool, Cass, meeting some of these people and sort of getting to hear their stories and how we sort of fit into their lives as well.
Yeah, 100%. It's a stark contrast compared to, say, UFC 193. I think we had about 4,000 subscribers at the time. And thanks to you guys, tuning in and listening, we kind of had this vision of, being the guys that fly the flag, for all the Aussies when it comes to MMA, or at least MMA media. And a lot of you kind of confirmed that to us. So it was amazing meeting all of you guys, and we definitely encourage you to keep on doing it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we look forward to meeting some of our friends and listeners over in New York as well. UFC 244 is looking likely, and it is looking likely because of a great sponsor that works with us, Musashi. I mean, Musashi, for people that don't know, they support a whole bunch of people in the MMA industry, guys like Robert Whittaker, Us Submission Radio. They're actually an Australian company, but if you care to check out the website, musashi.com.au, you guys can check out not only all the products that they have, because they have some of the most delicious proteins, protein bars, pre-workouts that you can find out on the market, but also they have some great training tools on the websites for all the Aussies out there, all the Americans that want to check that out. That's musashi.com.au. Jump on there. They got training tools. They got articles. You can check out the athletes that they support and how all the different sort of products work together. What I love about Musashi, Cass, just quickly for those that don't know how it kind of works, is they've sort of changed up their packaging. So it'll say like recovery for products that are made for recovery. They'll say like pre-workout for stuff that is used during pre-workout. And they really sort of break it down to people like myself who don't really understand what certain products might be used for. They really explain it in a detailed way and give you good direct directions to use stuff. So you can pick that stuff up through the supermarkets in Melbourne and across Australia. And of course, online, you can check it out as well and get some of those training tips. Super excited to be working with those guys going into UFC 244 as well. And just quickly wanted to thank MMA Fighting, Pete, Carol, Casey, Esther, for sort of putting us in their pre and post shows. You guys can check those out. And a friend of ours, Edris, did a little documentary as well. He's put that out. You guys could check that out as well. Beyond the Game TV cast. I mean, Edris is one of those guys that's super underrated. He put out a little documentary ahead of the Kelvin Gastelum Israel Adesanya fight that featured both of us. And now this one sort of takes you behind the scenes of UFC 243. The guy has had some amazing footage featuring Oscar Willis and the Schmo as well. So a big thanks to that. And obviously a big thanks to Oscar Willis and John Morgan as well for doing our pre and post shows. What a great week we had at UFC 243, Cass.
I know, just surrounded by love and, just such a milestone, monumental event. It was incredible to be a part of it. Just quickly before we get to our first guest, because the years on the line, the Anaheim T-shirts, which were featured in the Israel Adesanya interview. Again, apologies for some of the audio during this past week. Pretty embarrassing on our part. But the Anaheim T-shirts are still available, so you can get those at our official apparel store, which is Teespring. There's other ones as well, other classic apparel. And there's going to be other new fun designs coming out really, really soon. We can't wait to share those ones with you guys. But with that, without further ado, our first guest is on the line. We've got a fun, sexy show for you guys. Dennis, you're about to introduce him.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's a pleasure to welcome the next man to the show. You know him as New York Ric, obviously the senior social media specialist at ESPN. You know him from his work with the MMA Hour and Ariel Helwani show. He now joins us here in the house. Eric Jackman, fresh off the flight back to New York after spending a wonderful time here in Melbourne. It's good to have you on the program, man. And is this your room that you're in right now? Because I love the color on the walls.
Yeah, this is my room. This is where on MTV Cribs they would say this is where the magic happens. But no, actually, this is my daughter's room. It's quieter in here. We keep it nice and quiet for her. My room's a mess, so I'm fresh off the plane from Melbourne and in my daughter's room.
I love it. I love you guys trying to pronounce Melbourne and the way you guys say it. And I also love the fact that we don't get to see the stripper pole that's actually in your bedroom because you're in your daughter's room. So that's really good. Now, let me quickly bring up the fact that you have just, like you mentioned, come back fresh from a trip to Melbourne. And I guess a lot of people would want to know what your experience was like. You dodged some of the big drinking nights with Submission Radio, which is okay. It means you're a professional. But what was your time like in Melbourne, and how do you sort of rate this city?
Beautiful city. Reminds me of New York City a lot. The greatest city in the world. So I give Melbourne really high grades when you're comparing it to the greatest city in the world, New York City. The fight experience was as advertised. I think Israel and Rob delivered an event for the ages. I think the fans in Melbourne delivered an event for the ages. So as advertised. I was a little skeptical just based on the strength of the card, but the city was electric and the fights were electric, so it all delivered.
What did you make of the atmosphere in Marvel Stadium? It's a bit of a weird one. Like, it's so big and the sound kind of travels all the way from the back, and the sound is almost on delay in a sense. What did you think of it as far as stadium shows go, as far as spectacles go, and as far as the atmosphere itself?
Yeah, it's a little eerie when there's not something super exciting going on.
Mm-hmm.
It almost feels dead. But when something magical does happen, for example, an Israel Adesanya knockout in the second round, the stadium comes alive and it feels unlike anything else. So I think if you're going to deliver those big moments, a stadium show like that in Marvel Stadium is the way to do it. But if there's a lull in the action, if there's something dull, if the fans are not into it, it can feel a bit cavernous and it starts to get real quiet. But luckily, the main event delivered in the way that I think the UFC and the fans there were hoping. And I really liked it. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was an interesting setup. I don't know how it compares to UFC 193. I wasn't there, but I imagine it was pretty similar, and I imagine the crowd reaction was probably pretty similar there too.
I think the vibe was a lot cooler at this one compared to UFC 193. I think when Ronda got knocked out, a lot of people were just kind of disappointed and deflated because a lot of people were just casual fans there. They came for the Ronda Rousey experience, and they were like Krusty the Clown watching Russian cartoons. Like, what the hell was that? Whereas this one, I think that the spectacle and like Israel Adesanya's entrance, the way he came out and then delivering that knockout, it was, as everyone has said, a star-making performance. Just sort of going off that, the way he went the extra mile to give the entertainment. Do you think he's kind of like the next Conor McGregor, or do you think this is something completely different? How big do you think Israel Adesanya can get in the future?
I do think he's different than Conor McGregor in the sense that I think everything with Israel is very authentic to himself. I don't think he's as calculated and business-minded as Conor McGregor. Don't get me wrong. That's not to say that I think Israel Adesanya does bad business. I think he does good business. But I think with Conor McGregor, toward the end, everything started to feel a little bit hands-on and a little bit calculated, a little bit handled, and all toward making the most possible money in the fight game. I think Israel still has like an enthusiasm for fighting that Conor McGregor kind of got past at a certain point. So I think there's a difference there. Now, maybe he's on that trajectory. Maybe this is too early in the game, and all of a sudden those things change. But I do still think his thought and care that he put into his walkout is a sign that this part of the fight game still matters to him. It's not just about a check at the end of the day. In fact, he said during media availability during fight week that people asked him about the Conor McGregor game plan and going outside the sport to make hundreds of millions of dollars. And he said, look, I can make hundreds of millions of dollars in the UFC if I want to. So I think his mentality is a little bit different. I also think the way he handles his engagements with fans is a little bit different. He's a very authentic personality, and I do think he is the new face of the UFC. I don't think he will be the crossover star that Conor McGregor was, because I think that Conor McGregor kind of did that already. I think it will be very hard for somebody to kind of replicate that method. And I do think he's a little bit too inside the fight space bubble at the moment to get outside of it. Now, another performance like this and another performance after that, and it may be time to start considering it, but I do think it's a little too early to kind of put that pressure on Israel.
I love the fact that when he was in Culture Kings, which is kind of like the cool hip hop shop down here in Australia, he was talking about how he spends all his money on real estate and nothing flashy. I feel like that's like a City Kickboxing Eugene Bareman influence right there. Let me quickly ask you, Rick. The main event, I know you're not very good at making predictions because we had a conversation about UFC 245, and we'll bring that up a little bit later in this chat. But before we get to that, what was your prediction going into this fight, and how different did this play out, and what did you think of that win by Israel at Marvel Stadium?
Yeah, I predicted Israel Adesanya to win this, and I thought he'd win it early. The part that did surprise me was how aggressive Whittaker was. And I think it was to his benefit, not to his detriment. I think there will be a lot of people that think Whittaker was, quote unquote, too aggressive. I would argue that that's wrong. I would argue that the game plan that he had was going to be an effective one. He looked sharp. in the first round. I thought he won that first round up until the knockdown. And quite honestly, you could probably still give him that first round. But I think that he had a deficiency, and he had a trap was set by Israel Adesanya that he was able to capitalize on in rounds 1 and 2. But I thought Whittaker fought well, and I think that will be lost in this fight. I think people will very quickly say that Whittaker was outmatched just because of the outcome, which I disagree with. I thought Israel Adesanya fought his best fight to date in the UFC. But I did expect that. I think people were enamored with the idea of Robert Whittaker taking Yoel Romero's best shots and being able to walk through them.
Mm-hmm.
But as we've seen time and time again, that type of power is different than the precision that Israel Adesanya is bringing. That's those kind of sniper shots versus those bombs that Yoel Romero is landing. Those are hard to withstand. And Israel will be the first to let you know that with his sarcastic, but I don't have power inside the ring. He definitely is somebody who can finish people, and I think we saw that. But I thought it was a great fight from Robert Whittaker, and I thought it was an even better fight from Israel Adesanya.
Great analysis there. Now, it looks like Israel's going to be pretty busy going into the future. We saw he sort of set up this Paulo Costa fight. If you were to book his sort of next couple of fights, give us who would the opponent be, and also, importantly, the location. Because a lot of people are talking about Israel could sell out another fight at Marvel Stadium, another 57,000 strong here in Melbourne. But if you were booking it, would it be Costa next? And if so, where would that be? And then what would be the fight after that? You think that would make sense?
Yeah, I think it's got to be Costa. They're both building toward that. There's no reason not to do it. I don't see another contender at middleweight that really makes sense. I know Israel mentioned Jared Cannonier as a possible opponent, but he did also concede that he needs one or two more to kind of get into that conversation. At the moment, it seems to be Paulo Costa and not much else. Could Yoel Romero sneak into the conversation with a big win? Probably. Would Chris Weidman be fast-tracked if he was able to? Oh, sorry. He's up at light heavyweight. So Chris Weidman's out. Yeah. It really is down to Paulo Costa at this point. The fight that I'm most interested in seeing is Kelvin Gastelum versus Israel Adesanya. I think that Kelvin Gastelum is the hardest fight for Israel Adesanya in this division, in my opinion. I would like to see that rematch, but first it's got to be Paulo Costa. And if you can sell out in Australia or New Zealand, I know that we're talking about different capacity in New Zealand, then you've got to go there early next year and do the Costa fight. I know Paulo Costa is campaigning for it in Brazil. It does not make sense for Israel Adesanya to go to Brazil to do it. He's probably ballsy enough to do that, but I would imagine that this happens in Australia or New Zealand early next year. And then Kelvin Gastelum sometime maybe for the big July card for the UFC next year.
It's interesting with Gastelum because we're sort of talking about it in the back, and it's like, would the UFC put him up against Kelvin Gastelum? Because of the threat that he is the guy that could possibly beat him. I'm just curious, what do you think happens to Robert Whittaker next? Like, that division is pretty stacked. You got guys like Cannonier, obviously Gastelum's fighting Till. Where would you sort of put Robert Whittaker, like looking at what he'd possibly do next and who he'd fight next if you were the matchmaker?
Yeah, that's an interesting one. I think Robert Whittaker could bounce back relatively quickly back into the title picture. I'd probably match him up with perhaps the loser of that Gastelum and Till matchup, maybe a Cannonier. There's a lot of good matchups. I think this opens a lot of options for Robert Whittaker, whereas I think there's really only one option for Israel Adesanya. I'd be interested in Robert Whittaker versus pretty much anybody but Yoel Romero. I think we've closed the chapter there, but everybody else is fair game, and I think Whittaker is going to be anxious to kind of stick around and vault himself back into that title contention. So a fight with Cannonier would make a lot of sense right about now.
Really appreciate the time, Rick. Just quickly, before we let you go, obviously there's some fun fights this weekend coming up. I want to get your thoughts on, obviously, Joanna versus Michelle Waterson coming up this weekend, and what you think sort of is on the line for both women here. You've got a few contenders in that division. What do you think gets the winner of this fight?
Yeah, I think this is probably one away or next in line for the title shot at strawweight. I think Joanna, somebody who, as long as she can kind of float near the top of either 125 or 115, is always going to be in title contention. Michelle Waterson is obviously a sellable asset. I think that if she can pick up the win, she was kind of knocking on the door already and was probably in line to get the title shot before Weili Zhang jumped in there. So I would guess that there's a lot on the line in the main event, and that if not next for the title, the winner of this fight will be one fight away.
And while we're talking about predictions, just quickly, Rick, we were discussing UFC 245 here in Melbourne during fight week, and I just want to quickly touch on this Max Holloway Alex Volkanovski fight because I feel like your prediction will be very interesting for the locals down here. A lot of people thinking Alex Volkanovski will be the man to beat Max Holloway, but Rick, what is your prediction for that one?
I would predict, you know what? Rather than a prediction, we'll call it fill in the blank. In order to beat the best, I'm sorry. I botched it. I'm sorry. Let me start over. In order to be the best, you've got to beat the best. And the best is blank. Fill in the blank for me.
The great.
We're talking submission radio.
The great Alex
The best is
Volkanovski.
submission.
New York Ric
You
facial
were
hair.
hoping
Is
for
that the blank?
blessed. You were hoping for blessed, but instead we hit you with the great.
Yeah, I think in all seriousness, I do think Alex Volkanovski's rise in this division has been absolutely incredible. I think he presents challenges that a lot of other guys in the division don't. But I do think that Max Holloway has advantages in this fight in terms of his mobility and his ability to kind of take a punch and then give back sharp ones. That is going to serve him well. I do think that Volkanovski may have him in trouble at points. I don't think this will by any means be a rout, but I do think that ultimately this is a fight that Max can win. And I would predict him to win this fight. If Volkanovski should win, man, imagine a card where champion Volkanovski and potentially champion Israel Adesanya are headlining something in either Australia or New Zealand. I can't imagine what kind of numbers they would be able to do and what kind of stadium they'd be able to pack for that. So I think the potential impact of an Alex Volkanovski win is massive and huge. But I do think Max Holloway has to be the rightful favorite kind of going into that fight.
I love it. I love it. Look how gently he said it. He believes Max Holloway is going to win, ladies and gentlemen. Let's see what happens in December. But for now, make sure to follow the man on Twitter at New York Ric. Of course, check him out on ESPN.
Before we wrap that, who are you predicting for this fight? I need to know.
Well, my friend New York Ric, I believe Alex Volkanovski will be the new champion come December. Christmas time, I believe, as the presents are being unwrapped under the tree, a man called Alex Volkanovski will be carrying a title belt under that tree as well. It seems that you don't seem convinced.
Put something on the line here.
All right. Well, we're on the show right now. I think a bet is in order between you and myself. How about this? How about we do a special little thing? I know you're a professional, so you can't do this during fight week, but I think in your personal time, whoever wins, we create a T-shirt. It says, blank knows best with a photo of our face. And during the Christmas period, Rick, for those 2-3 days with our families, I'll be in New Zealand, you'll be in New York. We have to wear that T-shirt consecutively and put up a photo at least twice on our social media of us in that T-shirt doing things during Christmas. Are you in?
It's a deal. Done deal.
Oh, wow. Look at this. This is
There
the
you guys
highest stakes
have
in
it.
MMA in 2019. Without a doubt. Forget the BMF title. It's all about this T-shirt, right?
I'm looking forward to you wearing a T-shirt with my face on it.
You know what? The good thing is I wear a T-shirt of you. People think I'm a Seth Rogen fan. You wear a T-shirt of me, they'll be like, why does he have bad guy number 3 from Taken on his chest? So I think I'm going to win regardless, guys. Make sure to follow New York Ric on Twitter at New York Ric. Keep an eye on this little wager because I think New York Ric is going to be looking extra sprucey come Christmas time. And, of course, check him out on ESPN, the Ariel Helwani Show. He's one of the best in the game, one of our closest friends in the media area. Thank you so much, New York Ric. We can't wait to come down to New York and spend some time with you ahead of UFC 244.
See you boys then.
Hey, this is Tony Okagui Ferguson, and you guys listen to Submission Radio. Keep tuning in, guys.
All right, guys. Our next guest had an incredible weekend as he took his fighters to victory 3 nights in a row across 3 different events, capping it off with Brad Riddell, Dan Hooker, and then Israel Adesanya becoming the UFC middleweight champion, UFC 243. The man behind New Zealand's own City Kickboxing, Eugene Bareman, Welcome back to Submission Radio. Dude, it is almost 11 o'clock at night, and look at this, you got the middleweight title. How are you? Is this the new one, or is this the interim one? Which one is this one?
Well, the interim one became the new one, so this is the new one. Yeah, so this is the new one. This is the undisputed title. And the reason I've got it is because Israel won't let me separate from it because I wouldn't acknowledge the other one. And then he was pretty adamant that because this is the real one, I have to hold on to it.
What do you mean? So he's not going to be carrying it around? He's not taking it anywhere? This is basically yours now to kind of take around?
Yeah, that's what he wanted. So, I mean, like, he kind of did it. Like, if you talk to him, I've heard him say that as far as he's concerned, he won the title already, but I didn't even want to look at that belt. I wanted to keep my mind focused on being the challenger. So I actually had that belt for a while, and I just had it in the bottom of my shoe cupboard. And but now I fully recognize this belt. This is the real undisputed belt. Like, this is a no marketing ploy here. You're the best in the world. You're the number one. You're the top dog. So this is it. So I was proud of our achievement last time, beating Gastelum, but I'm super proud of this, achieving this and getting this belt.
Wow. Huge. While I love seeing that belt and seeing the title, if I can get you to just be sort of a little bit more in the center of the frame, just so that we don't cut off the pretty face. There we go. Perfect.
How's that?
Perfect.
And my arms are fully stretched.
Yeah, no, you're nailing it.
Yeah.
That's perfect. I was gonna say also, how do you keep him hungry? Because I know that was kind of one of the things you told us. You didn't want that interim title around. You wanted him to be hungry like a challenger. Is that part of the mindset behind kind of hiding this one? Because he's got to stay hungry if he wants to keep defending the belt, right?
Apologies. Yeah, it definitely was. When you're first trying to reach out and grab a title, like, having the challenger's mindset can be a really powerful tool to use. And at that stage, because we only had the interim belt, then being able to use that tool was still available to us. But only if we did acknowledge that it was the interim belt, that we still had a fair way to go before we achieved what we kind of set out to do. And it just took him a while to get that mindset. And then eventually he put the belt away and gave it to me and said, "Look, I don't want to look at this again until it's the real belt." So eventually we both got to the same place, and as testament to whether that worked or not, I don't know if it worked, but the belt's on my shoulder, so maybe that had something to do with it.
It's great to see you with that belt on your shoulder, Huge. I'm just wondering, like, you mentioned before that this, is kind of the belt, like, you didn't want to acknowledge it before, but now you're acknowledging it now. What does it mean for you to be able to put it on your shoulder now and take it out of the box and sort of show it around and sort of be able to take it out of the darkness?
Yeah, I'm not really showing it around. I'll just show it to you guys.
It was in the bathroom, to be fair. It was in the bathroom before the interview. Was it just there on the towel rack, just as the place where you kept it, or did you do it for the interview?
No, well, it was on the suitcase, which is just outside this door. It was in my suitcase. And then I was like, you know what, the boys are interviewing, I should grab it out. It was, But in terms of what it just means the culminate. Like, when you set yourself a goal and a really lofty goal, and you actually achieve it, it's surreal. I'm still, to be honest, I haven't really processed the enormity of what we did. To be honest, I'm still getting used to it, if you like. But it just means a culmination of years and years of work and actually backing up a task that you set yourself to do like years ago. It's a very rewarding feeling. It's quite heavy, so I'm going to take it off my shoulder. Yeah, there it is.
That's right. It comes with the weight of the world on your shoulders. Let me ask you something, Huge, because we saw you didn't come out for the post-fight press conference, and we sort of had a few theories as to what a guy like you would do to celebrate such a successful night in your career and in your fighters' careers. So answer it for us. Once everything was said and done, how did you celebrate one of the biggest nights in sort of combat sports history in Australasia?
Yeah, the reason I wasn't there was I wanted to go and see my team who were waiting in the changing room, who obviously aren't allowed out in the bowl area. And me and Israel, we owe everything to them. And those are the first people that I wanted to see. Those are the first people I wanted to acknowledge. So as soon as I got out of the cage, I sprinted down there and I just wanted to see them. And then we had our own little celebration just amongst each other, a little private one where we just acknowledge each other, acknowledge the hard work. There's some screaming and some yahooing, but my first immediate thought went to them and all the rest of the people that have helped us along the way. Yeah, so that's why I went to them straight away, and I could catch up with Israel later.
When we were talking to Israel at the Pace High press conference, I asked him about what you sort of meant to him, and he really sort of expressed that, you're super important to him, you're just such a big part of his life. But I'd love to sort of flip that around to you. We always sort of have talked about your cool relationship and what your dynamic is, but like looking back on everything now, like what does that relationship with him mean to you?
I'm going to say that our relationship it's somewhere between a friend and a father. So it's not one or the other. It's stuck in a weird place in the middle.
But who's the father, right? I think he's called you the father. Yeah. You're the father in a relationship, right? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But I'm also a friend. So I'm also a friend to him. Like we're not that far apart in age and stuff.
Yeah.
I would have had to be 10 if I had him as my child. But it's in a weird place like that. But what that does allow me to do is have kind of two sets of feelings, if you like that emotions when you're looking at a close mate achieving something, but also when I guess you're looking at like a son, I'm able to experience both because I'm kind of wearing both hats.
Yeah,
it's a strange sort of feeling, but yeah, just immensely proud, and both ends of the spectrum. Just as a mate, just as one of the boys that has achieved it, but then there's that other side of it when he's almost like one of my own sons, where I'm like standing there with that smile, like almost like a proud father as well. So yeah, that's where I'm at, I guess.
I think a lot of people get that vibe, and I think it definitely comes across so we can understand it. Did you think that he was going to beat Robert Whittaker inside 2 rounds and beat him in such emphatic fashion?
Yeah, I'm not really. I never make fight predictions, but I keep them private. But I thought the fight would go. I thought the fight was going to go 2 ways over. Israel was going to win. Very convincingly over the whole distance, or he was going to stop Robert early. But I will say that by early I mean within the 5 rounds. But I thought that would come around 4 or 5. I did not expect it to come that early.
Oh wow! What do you think? What do you think it was due? Like this quick finish? Were you surprised? Was it something that Israel did on the night that led to the quick finish, or do you think it was something about Rob that maybe he did something that you guys didn't expect?
No, Rob did everything. We expected every single thing that Rob did. How if I give you a little bit of insight into our game plan without giving too much away, but I never tell Israel to give away a round, but sometimes I'm prepared for him to I'm prepared for him to lose a round if it means him gaining some knowledge about his opponent. So I asked him to start slowly and get the reads right, get the feints right, get the distance right, get used to the person's, get used to Robert's speed, get used to whether he was going to bounce or whether he was going to be more conventional. We'd get used to whether he was going to lead with that oblique kick or whether he was going to just basically. I asked him to get his eye in early and be conservative, and that might and I didn't tell him that. I didn't tell him this, of course. Like, I didn't tell him that might mean we might lose the first round, but I was fully prepared that if we did lose that first round, to lose the first round, in order to gain that sort of intel, if you like. And then, so what happened was he got the intel, and he made the adjustments really early and keyed into certain things really early, and that's why the knockout came early, because he grabbed that intel real early and was really comfortable. He actually if I'm being honest, like, he didn't really follow our strict game plan. He was in and out of our game plan in the first round. He was in and out of it. So there was parts we wanted to not stand in front of him too much, and we wanted to turn Robert a bit more, and we wanted to stay away from the right hand. We wanted to mitigate the right hand, which sets up the left hook, as opposed to like mitigating the left hook lead or the left jab. We wanted to get away from that right hand. He stood in front of that right hand, and after the first round, I asked him to get back to the position where we wanted to fight from. But he actually said to me that he assured me. He just said, "Look, brother, I see it. I see the right hand, and we don't have to worry about it."
Wow.
Which is like, it's difficult for me at that stage, because then my job is to mitigate the risk of the right hand. I know you see it, but if there's a chance where you make a mistake, and I can take that away from. I can take that away from you. Like, if you make a mistake, it doesn't matter, because you're going to be standing in the right position. He was prepared to stand more in front of the right hand than I wanted him to. But he got very comfortable very early. He's seen something. I haven't really talked specifically about what he's seen, but there was a giveaway there with that right hand that he just picked up, and he knew it was coming. He was able to evade it. He ended up evading it with a particular move that we've practiced, for years now. So,
wow,
it's amazing. It was an amazing fight. Like, if you look at those shots that knocked Robert down, like, there's only one way those shots are causing damage. And that's if they're 100% accurate and right on the button.
Yeah.
Because an off-balance shot like that, with your body like in that sort of position, if it had hit anywhere else, it would have just scraped off him or rolled off him. But those shots were in the only place they could have been to do damage, and that's a testament to a side of Israel that I still don't fully understand, and that's just that ability to connect your eye with your hand to the target in an awkward position. Like, that's something that I still don't fully understand how he does, but that's something very special, right? That he does that not many other fighters in the UFC do. Yeah, sorry, I carried on a bit there, but you got me talking about what I like to talk about.
Dude, that was great. That was amazing.
We love hearing about that, Coach. Just quickly as well, I was wondering, obviously an incredible entrance for Israel. He was able to sort of do something special with his lifelong friends and do an incredible dance before he came out. And some people were a little bit worried when they saw that. They thought, oh, maybe it's going to take away from his performance. But is that something that you guys discussed before the fight? And did you care at all about him doing something like that?
Nah, I mean, I know what he's capable of, and I know that was like water off a duck's back, all that stuff. We have a saying, and it's a bit of a cheesy saying, but it's a reassurance that we have with each other And it happened after his first ever kickboxing loss. He fought in Glory and he lost. And he came into the ring. He just wasn't ready. He got overwhelmed by the moment. It was his first moment on the big stage, and Philippe van der Linden beat him convincingly. But he never had that eye of the tiger. He didn't have it. Like, he just came in too casual and too nonchalant. And ever since that fight, that's going back years now. If I need reassurance that his mind's in the right place, I'll look at him and I'll go, "Eye of the tiger, eye of the tiger," and then he'll just nod at me and he said, "Yeah, eye of the tiger."
Wow.
And then I know we're on. Then I know that I got nothing to worry about mentally. So it's a little cheesy, but it's the thing it's what me and him do to reassure ourselves that that his mind is in the right place before the fight. So it works every time.
Wow, that's incredible, because that's just something you would see like in a movie, and it's great that we can find out that information. Just quickly as well, I love that he brought up Death Note. He pulled out the notebook, wrote Robert Whittaker's name in that notebook. I know you're not much of a person that's big on pop culture. Did you know much about Death Note? And when you saw it, were you like, "What's he doing?" Or what went through your mind when you saw him do that?
I had no idea. But I've since had it explained to me. There's like a picture of him. Have you guys seen the picture on Instagram? And he's writing down people's names. And then apparently that guy who's like some sort of death god or something, that's me apparently, standing behind him. So
how's it feel to be a death god, Huge?
A death god? Yeah, I would prefer to be a life god, to be honest, but it is what it is. That's a bit of culture that I don't really understand, but he embraces it. Good on him.
It's cool, man. It's funny, like, talking about the culture and stuff. I feel like, for the first part of Israel's, or everything before this in Israel's UFC career was kind of, how good is he? What is the ceiling on his skills? And I feel like we've kind of moved away from that, and now it's just how big of a star can Israel Adesanya be? We've had those Conor McGregor comparisons, and I feel like in some ways it's almost like he's, I don't want to say moved past Conor, but he's separated himself. He's the new school guy with all the pop culture references, the memes. He's what's in. He's what's cool right now. In your words, Huge, what is it that you think, makes Israel, excuse me, such a big star, and why people are so drawn to him?
I think that he's just himself, and he's just if he just be himself, like that's such an engaged person. So you don't need to necessarily. He doesn't have to be. He doesn't have to do the Jon Jones thing and pretend like he's someone else, and then years later come out and you're not actually that person. He just his personality is something that people just actually gravitate towards, and I think that's the key. He's just being himself. People like it, people gravitate towards it, and that's all he has to do. So it all comes very natural to him, and that's what I think is in terms of the success, in terms of picking up fans and stuff outside of the actual fights. I think that's the key part of it. Just being himself.
I just love to quickly, before we move off the fight, just get your thoughts on sort of Robert Whittaker in his future. I mean, he is still without a doubt one of the toughest guys in the division. Do you believe that this is one of possibly many fights that Israel's going to have with him? Do you think a guy like Robert will be able to find his way back to another title shot down the track?
I think definitely. I think there's a definite chance that we can see that me and Israel will see Robert again. He's just so good, right? Look what he's done. He just, he met his match yesterday night. But that doesn't necessarily mean that it's over for him. He's actually younger than Israel. And for what it's worth, Robert, I've always liked Robert. Robert's probably. I shouldn't say this, but Robert's probably more of the fighter that I'd gravitate towards than someone like Israel, just because I think Robert's personality is probably closer to mine
Yeah.
But I think he can definitely be. He's just because he lost to Israel, he's still one of the best middleweights in the world, and he still has a really good chance of fighting again if Israel wants to stay at middleweight and defend a few times. If he wants to do that, then Robert will definitely be in that mix, I reckon.
Mm-hmm. It's funny, like, I always think back to that story, how you told us, early when you first met Israel, you were kind of like, oh, I don't know about this guy, maybe you should train somewhere else. So, and obviously to see where you guys are now, and it makes a lot of sense why in the early days you would have gravitated to a guy more like Rob. But I want to touch on Paulo Costa because he seems like the guy that's next in line. Him and Israel had that awesome back and forth when Israel won and jumped on the cage. It looked like Costa wanted to get in the cage himself. What do you think of Costa as, I guess, the next challenge, the next opponent, now that, Israel's gone through this test? And I guess Costa's striking, right? That's something that you would probably enjoy talking about. Do you see him as any kind of threat to Israel in any way?
He's he's a very, I'm trying to be, I want to be, I don't want to, but he's very fundamentally sound. Like, he does the basics really well. He just, he doesn't have a broad enough skill set, even in the striking, to trouble Israel. If all you have to worry about is just, a really strong guy who throws, who walks in and throws 2 or 3 or even a 4-punch combination, if that's all you have to worry about, then it's just not going to be enough. Like, it's I don't want to be overconfident, but I'm happy for that. If that's the fight that happens next, then that's not going to be a problem for us. There's bigger challenges in the middleweight division than Paulo Costa. He's worked himself up to a great position where he seems to be the number one guy. So he looks like the most likely scenario if Israel. It's hard for me to know what's going to happen. Like, Israel could. It's up to him now. Like, he's in a funny position. Like, he's where Conor McGregor was. Like, Israel calls the shots now. That's the thing. Israel does what he wants to do. He said it in the press conference. So, like, I'm gonna let my dancers do this, and if my dancers don't come, then I'm not doing nothing. He calls the shots now. He's got himself to that position. And whatever he wants to do, what he wants to do. So it's not up to Paulo Costa, or it's not up to the UFC. Now Israel's in another stratosphere where he gets to call the shots, and it's up to him. So he might go and fight in a different division. I have no idea. We've got to get together and talk about it.
Wow. I'd love to pick your brain more on that. And find out if there's a possibility that maybe we would see Jon Jones next, or you even mentioned Stipe Miocic next.
Yeah, Jon Jones. I haven't followed the story completely, but I don't know how that came up. But that would be a hard fight for my team, the group of guys that get together and decide who Israel fights. That would be a very hard fight for us to get across the line. Because, we're just like, why? There's ethical and moral issues that don't sit well with my team. And they would be very reluctant to give a man like him the sort of opportunity that Israel can bestow on him. We have a track record of not fighting certain opponents, even though they make sense. And I'm not talking about in the UFC, I'm talking about locally. Because they're just not good people. And, and Israel can want to fight him and have all the desire in the world to fight him that he wants, but it's not his decision. It's not solely his decision. So if my team decides that, it would just be hard for me to look at my team and ask them, should we give Jon Jones this opportunity, considering the type of person he is. Stipe Miocic. And I said, this is, was it you guys? Because it was taken all a little bit out of context.
Well, it was.
We did not write the articles, but you did say it to us originally about Stipe Miocic. Yeah. We didn't take anything out of context.
We don't write huge. We're not smart enough. We just interview.
Yeah, but you guys asked me, what's the biggest fight?
Correct.
And you shocked us.
Yeah, and I said Stipe Miocic, but because my inclination is to avoid someone like Jon Jones, not because Israel can't beat Jon Jones, it's just because, like my team's just different to that team. Like that team, we're just different. Like we don't vibe with that type of person. We don't vibe with that sort of behavior. Like my team's just in a different place ethically and morally. Like it just wouldn't happen. Like we just don't want to mess with that. Like Israel might want to, he might feel a little bit differently, but for me and my team, my group of coaches, my fighters, we just want nothing to do with anybody like that. That's just where we're at.
Just quickly on that, Huge, I'm just wondering, do you mean Jon specifically as an individual or his team? Because we've seen in the news, coaches have been voicing disappointments and not being paid. There's a whole bunch of issues with the camps. There's a lot of allegations going around. Is it specifically Jon that you're sort of turned off by, or just some of the stuff that's been happening down there at the camp?
Oh, I don't know. Yeah, I'm not sure what you're referring to. He doesn't pay his guys.
There's just little things floating around. There's a bit of hearsay here and there. People last week there was a lot of social media posts from coaches. Let's not get into that. What I wanted to ask you
we're just let me explain this. Like we're different camps. If Israel goes and does some of the things that Jon Jones does, he can no longer that Jon Jones does. He's not going to be a part of my gym. It doesn't matter how much money he makes. He will have to leave my gym because he'll just be a shit human being, and you can't do that. You can't be that person at my gym. Like, and I'm not. If he can, their setup's different. Their setup's different, and obviously, like, they treat things and they treat people differently. But like, I'm just giving an example from my gym, and I'm using Israel. Like figuratively using Israel. Israel does those sort of things. He has to leave the gym. He never, and if he, like maybe he doesn't leave the gym, but then me and the 30 other guys in the fight team, we take him out the back and we bash the shit out of him. Huh. We give him some tough love and we say, look, this, like, it's a completely different team. They set it up and they run it how they want to run it, and all power to them. And then me and my team, we do things our way, and yeah, that's the key difference. I'm not saying anything about the team. They've been one of the best teams, still are one of the best teams in the world, and they will remain to be that. It's just a way different setup to my setup. That's all I'm saying.
No, and we appreciate the honesty. And Coach Wink, a friend of the show, so we definitely see things from both perspectives. Just quickly, Huge, I just want to ask you about this notion. A lot of people see that Jon Jones keeps bringing Israel Adesanya up and kind of really is so keen on this fight. And I wonder, do you think at this stage Jon Jones needs a guy like Israel more than a guy like Israel needs a Jon Jones?
Jon Jones 100% needs Israel. Israel doesn't need Jon Jones at all. Jon Jones Israel is baiting Jon Jones at every corner, and Jon Jones just keeps biting because Jon Jones knows he needs Israel. He has Israel. Man, let's not talk about Jon Jones. Let's talk about Stipe. If we have to talk about this super fight, let's talk about Stipe. Let's talk about Israel going up. Has anybody gone up and won 2 titles but skipped the division?
Not that I can think of.
Gone up. Well, there you go. There's a bit of history. It's Jon Jones so far has not been willing to go up to heavyweight. He's been reluctant to go to heavyweight. Am I correct?
To date,
Jon
correct.
Jones?
Yep.
Well, Israel wouldn't be reluctant to go to heavyweight. Israel would go to heavyweight, and he would fight Stipe Miocic. There you go. We'll take that fight, Jon Jones. If you don't want to take it, you hang around at light heavyweight. We'll skip light heavyweight, and we'll take that fight. We'll take that fight off you. There's some more bait. There's some more bait there, so Jon Jones can bite on it and start doing what he does, like what these guys do. But we'll take the fight.
Wow.
Don't worry about Jon Jones. Let's stop talking about Jon Jones. Let's talk about Stipe. We got a bit to do. We got Paulo Cost, we got other things, but yeah, let's talk about that. Let's stop talking about Jon Jones and that big matchup. There's bigger matchups than Jon Jones. How about a guy going up 2 weight divisions to claim another title?
What is it? What is it? Because you mentioned to us that you see certain things at heavyweight that Israel could sort of take advantage of. What would some of those things be?
Well, some of them are obvious. Like there's like speed advantages, agility advantages. That you have just because you're a smaller person, but of course then there's other stuff you're giving away, like obviously size, strength, a little bit of reach. Miocic might even be taller than Israel, but there's some other more specific things I've seen that obviously I'm not going to go into, but those are the general things. Yeah, there you go. This has been an interview there. A lot of people are going to do this, and you know what? I won't see any of it, but Israel will tell me about it.
Thanks for
And just
thanks
when-
for the
when you
headlines,
see it,
Coach. This is a crazy interview, by the way. This is an absolutely wild interview.
Yeah. I think it has something to do with the belt being in the bathroom. But I was going to say, Huge, when you see those articles, make sure to know that we have nothing to do with them. We just do the interviewing. Let me just quickly ask a couple more things, and then we'll let you go because it's late here in Melbourne, and we want you to catch your flight on time. A guy that's been very, very complimentary of Israel Adesanya has been Conor McGregor. He was very supportive during the fight week. He was sort of tweeting a lot of stuff. I know that you probably wouldn't have seen it, but what do you think about a guy like Conor sort of seeing that star potential in Israel Adesanya and being so public and vocal about it?
I think for me, I don't really give Conor two thoughts. Like I don't really think about him much and what that means. But I know for Israel, who was a big fan, I don't know. I think he's still a big fan of Conor's. It means a lot. It's very reassuring for Israel when someone of that magnitude who's done some very big things in the sport. But someone who's done some very big things in the sport comes and compliments him. It shows Israel that he's on the right path to where he wants to go, which is to be bigger than Conor. So that's what that means to him. For me, what it doesn't mean nothing. Yeah, personally, it doesn't mean anything to me.
Yeah, I guess you didn't care too much about the Rock DMing him, but I know a lot of fans thought that was pretty cool. I think Israel thought that was pretty cool. You know how if I get something, then one of those guys sends it to me, and if they send it to me, then they really want me to look at it. Like the latest thing that got sent to me is from the UFC page is it's got Israel standing over Robert Whittaker, a really good photo. And then it's got a guy called Robert Whittaker's manager. Who's that? Is it Titus? It's Tim.
Titus,
Oh,
yes.
Robert Whittaker's? Yeah, Titus.
Yeah, it's got Titus commenting on it. Let's go, Barachinya. Underneath see, this is the kind of thing that gets sent to me. But it means like it's hard. It's out of context. Like I don't know the meaning. Now I know the meaning. I've had it explained to me. Obviously, that's Robert Whittaker's manager, who's a little bit sour, and is now supporting Barachinya, which I think is like who cares to me? Like I'm wondering why the guys send me this. But yeah, that's an example of the kind of things that get sent to me, like, and how I find out about them. So.
Well, I guess the good thing is that everybody's into this Barachinya Israel fight. We'll end on this, Huge, because obviously you do have that flight in a few hours. Israel Adesanya, Dan Hooker getting a dominant win over Ally Quinta, shooting his shot, calling out Dustin Poirier. It doesn't look like that fight may happen, but still putting on a great performance. Brad Riddell, successful UFC debut. not only that, but you had 3 nights back to back of cornering fighters. Was this arguably the greatest night in CKB history to date, or possibly the greatest weekend in CKB history to date?
I think you can't argue with that. I think that's like a very perfect description of what happened. I think it was as better a night as we could get for my little gym in this little corner of the earth. So you hit it right on the button.
Well, I'll tell you something, Coach. There's a reason why we needed to do this interview, and that is because I know you don't like the credit, but we couldn't make this week go past without having you on, congratulating you for all your hard work, making you sit in the bathroom with a UFC title in the middle of the night while you broke down everything. And look at that. City Kickboxing, one of the reasons why the UFC is considering involving New Zealand more and the Ultimate Fighter more in the Contender Series, signing more fighters. City Kickboxing, one of the reasons why Melbourne had one of the biggest, or the biggest, UFC attendances of all time and the biggest organic Australasian card of all time. And the man to thank, obviously the team, an amazing job, but also Eugene Bareman. Instagram is at City Kickboxing. Make sure to check out the new gym. And Eugene, we can't wait to see what's next from all your fighters. Thank you so much for joining us on the show.
Thank you guys. Always a pleasure. You guys do a great job. Thank you.
Thanks, Eugene. Really appreciate it.
This is Chael Sonnen, and you are listening to Submission Radio.
All right, guys. Our next guest is a close friend of the show, but more importantly, this man is a combat sports legend, a UFC Hall of Famer, former heavyweight champion, multiple-time king of Pancrase, and one of the nicest guys in the game. It is a pleasure to welcome back El Guapo. The handsome one is in the house. Bas Rutten, welcome back to Submission Radio. It's been a while, man. How are you?
Oh, yeah, it's too bad. Too bad when you guys were in town that I wasn't here. That sucked, because that would have been great.
I know, man. But you know what? We'll be back in town soon, so we'll be annoying you all over again. But in the meantime, we're excited to have you back on this show. I think all of our viewers have been requesting for you to come back, so they're super excited to see you or hear you. And there's so much to talk about in the sports world that we would love to get your thoughts on. First off, so just wondering, did you get a chance to see Israel Adesanya's masterful performance against Robert Whittaker, which actually happened in our hometown of Melbourne over the weekend? His striking looked unbelievable.
He does. You know, he looked really good. Whittaker looked good too, but he made a few mistakes. He just, after a combination, he would stand there for a moment, and that's when he got tagged. You know, he needs a little bit head movement after he makes a combination. But I thought he did really great, especially when at the beginning of the round number 2, when it started, when he lunged forwards with his long jabs and his long straights. I think he was doing good. He should have gone after the body from Adesanya, because he always, on a big hook, he moves his head backwards, but his body stays right there. So maybe for future opponents, that's a right straight to the solar plexus right there, because he's overexposed. Ooh.
Do you reckon that's kind of maybe one of the keys to beating Adesanya? Because thus far he's undefeated in MMA. Nobody's been able to do it. Do you think this is something that could be, you know, a good thing for future opponents?
Yeah, I truly believe so. But you know what? He's a smart guy, you know, and he will hear this as well. So he's going to start working on that. But you see this a lot with guys who are that weight, but very tall for the weight class. They do the same thing in sparring. They lean back on their hooks, and that's it's picking, free picking. The solar plexus is right there. So if you give a left hook and he moves back and he goes straight to the solar plexus, that could be a big problem. I always said the same thing, actually, that they had to do that with Anderson Silva, because he was doing the same, stand still, and he moved out of the way, but the body stays at the same spot. I go, why is nobody hitting the body? You know, so at least try it. I mean, maybe he's got a defense for that. I don't know, but you know, if you don't shoot, you always miss. That's what we say in Holland.
You know what I love about this? We've spoken to countless media people, coaches, all coaches from every side during this fight week, and no one has brought up the point that you have brought up, Bas, which is why we love having you on the show. You're an absolute genius when it comes to striking and all sorts of other things. I'm just wondering, when it comes to ranking Israel in terms of one of the best strikers in the UFC, where does he rank for you on that list right now?
Yeah, well, for now, we should, he's the number one guy, right? He's the real champion, went from interim to the real champion. I mean, and he, still 18, and to have a title already like that, and the way, I mean, Whittaker, I'm a big Whittaker fan, man. I love the guy's heart. I mean, there's always pushing through. So I was really rooting for him, actually. But, I got to give props to Adesanya. I mean, he's such a great fighter. So for me, most of the time when I see a fight like that, may the best man win. That's literally who has a bad day, off day, and Whittaker, he was just a little bit off. I think if he works on movement right after he punches, I would love to see a rematch immediately then.
For sure. It looks like with Israel, the next thing might be Paulo Costa, but there's this Jon Jones kind of, beef that's been brewing for quite some time. These guys have been going back and forth. What do you think about a potential Israel Adesanya versus Jon Jones fight? Is it something that interests you? And do you think that Israel would have a chance against a guy like Jon Jones?
Yeah. Well, Jones always shows us his great striking, but what people seem to forget is that if Jones wants to take somebody down, he takes him down. So and if he gives Adesanya a real great combination that he puts him in full defense and then he shoots for a takedown. Yeah, I mean Jones right now, I think as pound for pound, the guy could be the best guy ever. I mean, he almost doesn't make mistakes. He has no patterns when you see him fight. He doesn't repetitive do something. You can't figure him out. Every time you see him, he comes with something new, But then you see a guy like Adesanya also very creative, all the things that he does. But still, he's more of a striker. And because Jon Jones is a great striker himself, but with the great wrestling, that's when I would say, okay. And what weight class would it be?
It would be a light heavyweight, we believe.
Okay. Wow, that it would be a great fight. That's for sure. This could go the distance, and we're going to see a highly technical match, or Jones takes him down. Because how many takedowns did Jon Jones have, and that didn't work? I think he has a very high percentage of takedowns, right?
Yeah. Correct.
Well, I think with the thing with Jon Jones is, and we saw it in the Santos fight, he chose not to wrestle Santos because he said he wanted to beat Santos in the area that he's strongest in. So I guess it's going to be interesting to see, will he go into this fight wanting to sort of prove a point against a guy like Israel Adesanya, just like he did with Santos, or will he utilize that wrestling at some point and really sort of challenge Israel's takedown defense? That would be fascinating. I'm just wondering, Bas, as well, when we were speaking to Israel's coach, and he's on this show as well, he was on earlier, he brings up a really interesting scenario where Israel skips light heavyweight, goes straight up to heavyweight, because Israel used to fight at heavyweight sometimes in kickboxing, and takes on a guy like Stipe. He believes that Israel is the guy to do it, and they have a number of advantages when they move up to a weight class like heavyweight. So I'm wondering, you're a genius yourself when it comes to striking and all those sorts of things. Do you see that pathway of Israel having a ton of sort of advantages if he moves up to heavyweight and fights a guy like Stipe?
The disadvantage is going to have his stamina. That's what I think, because if he packs suddenly on 20, 25 pounds, that's a lot of weight to carry extra with you, if you're not used to that. So if they give him enough time, let's say in a half a year from now, so he can build up slowly to it and get used to that weight. Yeah, and plus he knows what he can do in heavyweight division in his kickboxing. So I don't think a guy like that would lose his speed. I think his kicks together with the hands, that I think that is better than Stipe has. But then again, Stipe is Stipe, man. That guy, man, he's never out of the game. You think you finished him, and then he comes just right back. You would think if somebody can do it, it's a guy like Stipe Miocic. It's a hard one. It's a hard one to call. I'm just thinking carry an extra 25 pounds around. That's a lot. Just put a weight vest on 25 pounds and then start training. See how that feels. That's a lot.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's the crazy thing, right? Like, it seemed when the way Israel was talking about it, he wouldn't even gain any weight for it. And I think his coach sort of said the same thing. He would stay at middleweight. He would stay around the same size in order to keep that advantage, which is, I guess, kind of irregular to how a lot of guys would approach it, right? A lot of guys would kind of try and gain the weight and gain the muscle, etc.
Yeah, but then he cannot fight for a title, because for what I understand, when I was fighting for the UFC title, I was under 200 pounds. At that time, was only one weight class. I believe they called it middleweight and heavyweight. It was 200 pounds and under and 200 pounds and over. That was when I fought was for the first time that a weight class came in the UFC. I was 197, and they said, well, you need to be over 200 because otherwise it couldn't be a title fight. So I literally had to drink waters at the weigh-in. And I was already standing in my jeans and my clothes on the scale, so I was drinking all those. Then I made 3. So I don't know how that works, if it still can be a title fight then, because I believe in order to be a title fight, he has to fight at that weight class.
Apparently, one time when he weighed in for a kickboxing match, he had all his clothes on and a box of donuts on the scale with him to make weight. So it'll be fascinating to see what happens. Hey, I'll tell you what, though. He's got that Bas Rutten spirit. I feel like that's something you would have done back in the day. So that's why I wanted to bring it up with you. We also wanted to bring up this BMF title, man, because Jorge Masvidal and Nate Diaz are going to be taking on each other for this BMF title at Madison Square Garden, UFC 244, one of the most impressive cards in quite some time. And we were there at UFC 241 when we tried to sort of hang out with you, and we watched Diaz handle Pettis, a fight that we thought Pettis was going to win. We were very, very impressed with Diaz. So going into this fight, I'm sorry, my voice is breaking up because it's such a badass fight. Who do you have winning here?
I would say Frankie Edgar, Dan Henderson. I mean, those guys, they will be in line for that belt as well.
Yeah.
Masvidal is a super explosive guy. He's got the fast twitch fibers. With that comes that he needs a lot of freaking stamina. And if somebody puts the pressure on somebody, and I know what I'm talking about since I used to be like that. All the guys who are super explosive, well, they need a lot of stamina. And if you have a guy like Diaz coming constantly forward, and he doesn't back down and constantly in his face, and he wires him down, that is, of course, if Masvidal doesn't land one of those crazy flying knees again or one of these crazy punches because he has a lot of power, that could be a long night for Masvidal because, he's going to wear him down. That's what he needs to do. He cannot, in the beginning, I wouldn't start even jabbing against him. He's got a long jab, so keep him far away. But Masvidal is a very explosive guy. He's out of the blue, he bursts and he comes forward. So if he connects, well, there's a lot of power in that, in whatever he's throwing. So if it's the first 3 rounds, how many is going to be a 5-round fight?
It's going to be 5 rounds, yep.
5 rounds, you see. So if it goes into the championship rounds, I see it leaning more towards Diaz. Pretty much every time when a Diaz is fighting, that is the game plan. You see it because you simply break them down, and then slowly but surely they start taking over later in the round. So, or Masvidal completely tuned up on stamina, but still, if you fight a fast twitch fiber guy and you're like a Diesel, which the Diaz brothers are, you have to be in their face the whole time. And then hopefully Masvidal in training can find people like that or do a Shark Tank, so to say, 1.5 minutes, 4 guys, 6-minute rounds. And then every time 1.5 minutes, you got a fresh opponent who constantly comes forward, because it's something you have to learn to deal with. If he is the better striker in the gym and he manhandles everybody, that's a big problem, because then if somebody suddenly is in his face, like Diaz is going to be, it's going to make you tired much faster because you're simply not used to it. We have this great fighter in our gym, and I wasn't there at the first fight, and I should have thought about this. And this guy is so insanely good. He's an older guy already. Billy Poe is his name. Super explosive. He's 205. He moves like somebody who's 175, 170 pounds. It's insane. And super fast. Pushes everybody backwards. In his first fight, he lost. And how did he lose? Well, by a decision, but the guy was just in his face. And he was never in that position that he'd been pushed backwards in training because he just simply manhunts everybody. You see, but you need to find a person who can mimic what Diaz does and can do it for an entire round. Otherwise, he's got to go to a Shark Tank and do it with 4 opponents who are constantly fresh and are in his face, and do that for 5 rounds. Yeah, then he can be ready. But what is the fight going to be again?
It's going to be in New York in just a few weeks, I think.
November 2nd, I believe, stateside. Yeah, over in Madison Square Garden. I kind of want to. I'd love to see you there, Bas. I feel like it's going to be our finally our chance to meet up face to face and in person. So I'm greedy like that.
In 3 weeks. So what is the date on it?
November 2nd. That's the actual event.
2nd. Okay. Let me flip to my calendar right away here.
And you've also got Kelvin Gastelum versus Darren Till. You got Stephen Wonderboy Thompson on the card. You got Gillespie versus Kevin Lee. There's a ton of really exciting fights on there. I think I'm leaving a few outcasts. I think there's
a whole bunch. This is a stacked card.
Well, I'm seeing that I'm the weekend home, so let me see.
You can stay in our Airbnb. Don't worry. Free accommodation for the UFC Hall of Famer.
We're staying in Harlem.
That would be fun, and then we can do a podcast also, and then maybe I should, go over the card and break some fights down or something.
Dude, we would be honored. We would be absolutely honored. But we'll let you sort that out. The winner of this BMF title, right, between Masvidal and Diaz, what do you think it does for him in terms of, being the biggest stars in the UFC, and where do you think they would rank amongst guys like, say, Conor McGregor and even Israel Adesanya? Because I think while Conor McGregor is undeniably the biggest star, he's been inactive for quite some time now. And man, this BMF title, Nate Diaz, Jorge Masvidal, it is what everybody's talking about right now.
Yeah, the BMF, I love that title, but I still think it's a bad mother father, right? I'm saying it. So that's, in order to be the ultimate bad mother father, you're going to have to win the real title next to it. And if you have both of those, I truly believe that you can claim you are the baddest mother father on the planet. So that's what I'm saying. The titles like this are great, and there could be guys on also who don't have a super Clay Guida, right? That guy always in your face. Tony Ferguson always in the face. Then again, Tony Ferguson might get the real title against Khabib because, can Khabib sustain that? Can Khabib stop him before he keeps on pushing? Because everybody right now that faces Tony Ferguson, they just run out of gas within 1.5, 2 rounds because the pressure is just too high. He constantly keeps coming forward. Then again, Khabib is not a stupid guy. He's a very smart guy, and he knows exactly, and his father as well, and all these crazy wrestlers. So they probably do Shark Tanks, what I was just talking about, because he really is going to need it against a guy like Tony.
While speaking on Khabib, Dana White's brought GSP back into the mix. Dana White basically said if this Tony fight can't get negotiated, GSP is there and that fight could happen. I think it might be a negotiation tactic, but we're looking at GSP right now as 38. It kind of looks like if this fight happens between him and Khabib, it'll still take another year and a bit. So he might be a bit closer to 40 when he does fight Khabib. I'm just wondering, I know you're big on GSP, Bas. Do you see an older GSP still being able to beat Khabib?
GSP, man. I wish that GSP really lets everything go that he has, because if he does that, he's an animal. Still, listen, when I was 42, I had my last fight. I felt great. It was the injuries, but physically, and stamina-wise and everything, I felt really good. He's 4 years younger. He kept on training. I didn't train for 5 years, and then I had 10 weeks to prepare myself. George is a different animal, He kept on training. He always trains. So, yeah, I see that as a really good fight, and I think George would be stupid not to take it, because if you're looking for a huge payout, that would be the fight. Everybody would love to see that fight. That means they're going to get a cut on the pay-per-view. That's going to make them both very rich.
I would love to see that fight, as long as it's after this Tony fight, because this is obviously the main one that people want to see. Just wanted to get your thoughts, Bas, obviously on Conor McGregor. There were talks from his coaching staff that maybe they wanted to see him fight Frankie Edgar, which kind of makes you feel like he probably wants to fight Frankie Edgar. And it was something that kind of shocked a lot of people, because people were talking about Justin Gaethje or, other guys in the lightweight division, but not Frankie Edgar. What did you think of this, potential fight, and if it is the next fight for Conor?
I would love it for Frankie Edgar. I'm a huge fan of Frankie, and I think he should be good for the BMF title as well. That guy is right up there with Dan Henderson and all the other guys. They just steamroll through everybody. They're so tough, have so much heart. Plus, this will be the biggest pay that he ever had. And I think a guy like Frankie Edgar who's pretty maybe within a year it's going to wrap up his career. I don't know how he feels for the rest, but he's coming to his end of his career. This could be a huge fight for him, money-wise. So I would love that. And I think it could be a great fight because he's just tough as nails. And he can wear down McGregor. Again, if McGregor cannot finish him in the first 2 or 3 rounds, Frankie coming constantly forward, I can see that suddenly switching the tables.
Can you imagine if Frankie Edgar beats Conor McGregor? Man, that's going to... nothing against Frankie, but that's going to be tough for Conor. I'm wondering because, Bas, we know Conor McGregor a little bit, and what we know about Conor is he was always shooting for the biggest fights. So, he'd fight guys like Aldo. He'd fight guys like Eddie Alvarez, sort of the toughest challenges. He'd fight Nate Diaz, and he'd rematch him at a higher weight class. This is kind of the first time that we see Conor McGregor kind of not shooting for the stars and not sort of calling out the toughest challenge that's available to him. Do you think that says something about his mindset, or? Well,
we don't know. There's a lot of Frankie fans, right? Maybe Conor is thinking, I kind of want him to make a lot of money. Maybe he respects him so much that is one of the reasons that he wants to fight him. And Conor also, after his last loss, to put him up against right away against a super animal like a Tony Ferguson or something, constantly in his face, that would be a bad decision. I think he needs to get back in the game. I personally thought that he, when he said he was gonna retire, that he should have been boxing. He should have taken Paulo Malignaggi in boxing. That would have been the greatest. Now he can't do it anymore because with the BKB, what happened there with the bare knuckle boxing. But that would have been a great fight for him as well. Plus, he would have made, again, a killing.
Just quickly, one other guy in the division there, Justin Gaethje. And he's a guy that you know well from your days commentating at World Series or fighting. Obviously, you still commentate over at the PFL now. I mean, how do you think a guy like Justin Gaethje in 2019 would do against Conor McGregor now? Do you think a lot of people believe that Justin Gaethje would win that fight?
Well, the last time I was very pleased when I saw him fight, the head movement that he had, and that he was not constantly standing. Listen, I've been talking to him since the World Series of Fighting. I said, dude, you cannot keep fighting like this. Yes, you're winning, but you're taking a lot of damage. You shouldn't do this. You want to be able to talk to your kids when you're going to get kids, when you get older. And he says, no, that's just my fighting style. I love to fight like this. I go, I know it's a smart idea. And then in the last fight, he started using way more head movement. He started picking his shots better. And once he does that, it's great. But Conor is a very hard opponent to fight, especially the first two rounds. He's laser precise. He lands at will pretty much. I mean, he landed against Mayweather, landed shots. He's got that accuracy. He's got that long reach. He's going to keep him away. For a fighter like Gaethje, what I also always said to him as well, why don't you take him down, your opponent? But again, he wants to please the fans. I don't think pleasing the fans, it's always great to please the fans, but you please the fans also if you take him down and ground and pound and knock him out. Trust me, people are going to love that as well because he's a really good wrestler. Why wouldn't he use his wrestling skills? Also, is Gaethje, because I top of my head, I don't know, is he southpaw or not? Do we know that? Because I don't remember.
Great question.
I don't remember off the top of my head whether Gaethje's southpaw.
I don't think so, but if it would be, this is also a thing. Once Aldo, the trainer from Aldo, what I would have done, if I knew that McGregor wanted to fight Aldo, I would have switched Aldo right away to southpaw and train him for 6 months like that. Because the way McGregor stands in that really low stance, he doesn't give you a target for low kicks. It's going to be inside low kicks, but the knee is right there. You're going to kick the shin because his leg, he's bent down so much it's almost horizontal, so you almost don't have a target. If the back is straight there, you have the leg that you can kick, but the leg is horizontal, so there's almost no target. Now, if you're a southpaw and you start attacking with low kicks, and Gaethje has really great low kicks, you see, and he starts connecting with that front leg, watching out, of course, that his defense is up, because a lot of people make a mistake. If you give a low kick, they bring their hands down, and you don't want to do that against McGregor because he'll knock you out immediately because he's got that power. But that could be a problem because then you slow down his movement, and once you slow down his movement, then you can start taking advantage of it. So, yeah, there's a lot of factors there, but the way he fought last time, yeah, I do believe he has a chance. But he's got to keep on working with that head movement because McGregor, like I said, he's so precise, and he connects it. Well, look what he did to Aldo, and he was saying that in the dressing room before the fight even. It's going to be a short fight, don't worry about it. I'm knocking out within 30 seconds. Boom, and he did. So,
man, this is why we love having you on the show. So much insight. I just feel like it's like having a wizard on the show, basically, that can just break things down that no one else can. Just quickly, while we're on McGregor, just quickly, he's had some more controversy. He punched a man in the face in a bar. His popularity sort of has dropped a little bit. His drawing ability sort of dropped a little bit after that happened. Do you think this is the last Conor McGregor controversy we'll see, and he sort of learned from this one, or will this be a Jon Jones thing where this kind of keeps happening over and over, in your opinion?
Yeah, I hope I'm right. I hope this is the last thing we see. I mean, because I always keep my hand above his head because I love Conor. He's a great guy. He did so much good for the sport. Way more eyeballs on the sport now because of him. And for that, I like him. Also, when you interview him, he's not that person that you see on TV. He's a really good guy, And I think people like that, once you have all that money and you have a lame of yay-sayers around you and everybody's saying yes and yes, yes, and somebody says something to you that you can do, and and he was drinking, he brought the drink in, so maybe he was already a little tipsy, and he started, and that's how it started. He should have never done that. I think he's ashamed himself, because if I look at that, if I would have done that, I would have felt horrible. But that was a douche thing to do. It was just not a good thing to do. And so I hope that he learned from this, and I truly believe so he did. Because, it can hurt him also in the other businesses as well, his whiskey and everything. Once they do something really bad, people are going to step away from you.
Bas, we really appreciate the time, man. We'll let you go in just a moment. But just quickly wanted to touch on, obviously, Karate Combat Evolution, the event that took place in September. How are you enjoying sort of working with them? Because I know that these guys have been doing great things, and it seems like a lot more people are getting excited about the shows. What's sort of coming up next that the people can look forward to?
Well, there's a show planned for November. I'm going to have to I wanted to call him today to see if that is still on, and I would love that. And then we're at the same place. The last time there was some technical difficulties, but this is all good now because that place stays the place. Everything that you saw last time is still there. It doesn't get changed. No other people come in. So right now we can actually go in there. We start rehearsing. We can do the whole 9 yards. And then together with Kenny Rice is back with me working. I love that. Of course. Yep. Oh, yeah, I have high hopes for them. But like I said in the last show, I truly believe a lot of these guys, they say they kickbox, but I think they maybe kickbox once or twice a week. And I think that if you really want to be, because you saw the last fights, and you saw like Josh Quayhagen and all these guys who have mixed martial arts and kickbox backgrounds, well, they do much better than the point karate, because the point karate is all single shots and then they stop. There's no combinations. You almost don't see a combination followed up with a low kick. It's one punch, one kick, one this, one that, and the guys who are tying it together, well, you see them dominating that organization. So I think now everybody is going to make that switch and they start kickboxing more. And then I think we're going to see some really great fights.
Well, I'll tell you what, Bas, we can't wait. Also, you mentioned it. You hit the nail on the head. It's such an exciting promotion. Everybody needs to check out this event in November. Just quickly as we wrap up, we see this month Receptra Naturals and Bas CBD Oil is donating 20% of all purchases of a special bundle to the nonprofit foundation Boarding for Cancer. The goal is to raise $10,000, which is absolutely amazing. So, guys, go to receptranaturals.com and make sure to get that bundle. Also, of course, Bas's O2 Trainer, o2trainer.com, and the Karate Combat at karatecombat.com. Of course, follow the man on Twitter and Instagram at Bas Rutten MMA. Can you imagine us staying in an Airbnb together in Harlem and covering UFC 244? I almost feel like we can do a pilot for NBC based off that. Two Australian guys who are messy, and an absolute legend in Bas Rutten who's clean. It would be unbelievable.
It would be something, man. Can you imagine? We do a show and we're allowed to drink.
Of course. Drink.
It's going to make much more fun. Not completely tanked because that stupid stuff is going to come out. But, once the tongue gets loosened, you say plenty of things and more truth will come out. That's what they say. And you just tell if you see something wrong, that it's wrong. And I know that I already do that. I try to do that because if I see somebody who kicks bad, I say, and then my partner says, that was a great kick. I go, really? That is really good. And then they always ask me, are you not afraid that the fighter is going to say something after the show? I said, well, if that fighter doesn't see that that's a great kick, he shouldn't be in the sport because that kick was a horrible kick. I mean, every other great striker will tell him the same thing. So, it's honesty sometimes, and especially here in America right now with the whole politics that goes on, it's very hard. You can't say anymore what is the truth because they switch it, they turn it, and they get it to something completely different. It's insanity right now.
Absolutely. Well, we thank you so much, Bas. And, of course, check him out on Cameo. He's doing videos for his fans, one of the best Cameo opportunities that's out there right now. Bas, we can't wait to possibly see you in New York. Thank you so much for your time. Super pumped for this interview.
Guys.
Godspeed. Thank you.
All right. Bye.
Well, there you go, guys. The one and only, the legendary Bas Rutten. Could you imagine it? Could you imagine if we were there at UFC 244, living in the same apartment, getting on each other's nerves, but also recording podcasts and doing previews and post shows? It would be amazing.
Oh, yeah. It would be like El Guapo Down Under with the boys. I can see that being the new sort of Chuck Lorre sitcom on USA Network, whatever networks have those kinds of things. Probably a lot more funnier as well. But yeah, no, it's unbelievable. So the invite is out there. We'll see what happens at UFC 244. And with that, guys, damn, that is the end of the episode. A big thank you to New York Ric, Eugene Bareman, and of course, Bas Rutten for coming on and gracing us with their presence. We will be back with another episode of Submission Radio next week. Enjoy the fights this weekend, guys, and we'll catch you then.